welcome back to another episode of Wuhan Weekly, a podcast that follows the trials and tribulations of 4 Scottish teachers in China. With me today are Ruth Taylor.
Hello.
Tony Ingalls.
Hi.
And Dean McKinnon-Thompson.
Hey.
How did everybody get on this week?
Yeah, it went well. What about you?
Yeah, school is busy at the moment because they're midterm exams, so we're all rushing about to try and get the students prepared for those because they were sprung upon us at very last minute.
Yeah, there's been lots to do with that. Voice recordings for the kids to do their listening tests and all sorts of things. We've all been very busy with it.
And in typical Chinese fashion, it's been terribly organised, and both our co-teachers, Lewis, have been away on training for the past 5 days. So we've been preparing the kids basically by ourselves with the help of various teachers on free periods.
Yeah. There was us three and another teacher, Simon. We had to record the listening part for the test as well. And I was very stressed out about their recording situation. Their studio was subpar, to say the least. It was this microphone that Vivian, one of the Chinese teachers, I think had found in a bin, and she had strapped it into this computer from like the 2000s, and we were using this software that no one knew what to do with, and there was kids screaming in the background, and there was background noise.
The bell was going off.
The bell was going off. There was kids outside throwing like stones through the window. I was like, it was fine, but when you come into when you come into our perfect recording studio, and we've got our manager and our sound guys over there,
and padded walls.
Yeah, padded walls. We're sitting here in our golden suits as well with all the sweet money we've made from this podcast. Like, you really see a difference between a good recording quality, like atmosphere, and a poor recording quality atmosphere. Because
Brian and I, who I did the voice recording with, we just used his phone in the teacher's office, and he was sitting there chain smoking as we did it, and it was and we spent 2 hours working our way through this and just laughing at every trigger word that we found funny. It was really, really difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. So on this day, actually, we're recording it on 11/11, so the 11th of November, and that is a very special day in China because it is Singles Day, because of the many ones that are in the date. So traditionally, Singles Day was, basically to hook your single mates up with other people. So there would be lots of like parties you would go out to, and all the bars here do like special events for 11/11. It's like, oh, come down and, try and meet new people. There's free beer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was started by a group of like students in Beijing, and they were all single. And I guess in China they do Valentine's Day, and it was just a day to buy gifts for yourself. I think to excuse just buying yourself obscene amounts of things on the internet, and then it became this big event. And then obviously Chinese companies like Alibaba, which is Chinese eBay, Chinese eBay, they all jumped on it. And if you're a bar, you own a restaurant, why wouldn't you jump on that as well? So now it's a really big thing in China.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest consumer holidays in China. 2 years ago on Alibaba and Taobao, these two big Chinese sites, they're essentially eBay. On one day, there was 6 million USD spent in 2013. 2014, it was 9 million USD spent. No, 9 billion, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy.
6 billion in 2013 and 9 billion in 2014. And there's reports now that it's going to be even bigger this year.
Yeah, I saw about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock this evening, this afternoon rather, that it already hit 8 billion.
8 billion. Yeah. And there's only the only other thing I know about this holiday is that you're supposed to eat. Dean was talking about it in the food episode a couple back. It's called youtiao. It's fried bread.
Right.
So they're normally done like a baguette. It's a one.
Bit of fried bread.
Yeah, it's a bit of fried bread. It's a one. So you're supposed to eat 4 of them, and you're supposed to have a baozi, so a little dumpling, and that's supposed to symbolise the dot. So it's 1 dot 1.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So apparently that's a traditional 11/11 breakfast.
Interesting.
Breakfast.
It's almost bad as eating donuts in the breakfast or having a fry up, isn't it?
Yeah. Clog your arteries for Singles Day. Oh my god, I'm so lonely, so I'm going to kill myself with all this fried food.
Okay, so this week we're definitely going to talk about Wuhan, and it's been a long time coming. So I think, Tony, you had a couple of things that you You prepared earlier.
Yeah.
You bloody art attacked this one, mate. Here's some stuff you prepared. Blue Peter, sorry.
Yeah. So, as everyone knows, we live and work in a city called Wuhan. Wuhan is the capital of Hubei province in central China, and it is the most populous city in that region. It's built along the banks of the Yangtze River, which is the longest river in Asia and the third longest river in the world. I'm not sure what the two longest rivers in the world are.
Nile?
Amazon?
Oh, there you go then. The Nile and Amazon.
You've got geography, mate. Oh my god.
Wuhan is a huge city, and by recent records, it has over 10 million people in it.
Right.
That's because it was actually made up. It's an amalgamation of 3 separate cities called Hankou, Wuchang, and Hanyang. Also, because of its role as a major domestic transportation hub, due to its central location, obviously, it's sometimes referred to as the Chicago of China.
Oh, sweet. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like lots of buses and trains and planes fly and go through here.
Well, we talked about that in the travelling podcast because we talked about how easy it is to get around, and I guess that's one of the, that is one of the advantages of living in Wuhan is that you can get anywhere really easily. Like, if we want to go away at the weekend, we can get to Shenzhen in 6 hours, to Shanghai in 6 hours, to Beijing in 8 hours because we're so perfectly located.
Yep, that's exactly right. And and like I said,
good answer.
Like I said, it goes. Some people call it Chicago of China. Some people also call it Hubei's furnace because it is really fucking hot here in the summer and really dry. So a little bit of background on the importance of Wuhan in China. So it was first called Wuhan in 1927 when it was the national capital of the Kuomintang government. That's the KMT. The reason it was the national capital of the KMT government is because it was the location of the Wuchang uprising led by Chinese revolutionary Sun Yat-sen, which led to the fall of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of the Republic of China. So Wuhan is a really important place in Chinese history.
Especially because China was Asia's first republic, so it all kind of started and kicked off in Wuchang, which is where we live in Wuhan. So in Wuhan, we live in Wuchang. That's where we live.
I've got another couple of interesting tidbits that we may or may not know. It was also involved in something that was that became known as the Wuhan Incident, which was an armed conflict between 2 groups fighting for control of the city in 1967, which happened during the Cultural Revolution. So that was during the rise of the Communist Party here.
But it wasn't just 2 armed groups. These 2 armed groups comprised of 500,000 people each, so it was huge amounts of people fighting for control of Wuhan.
Army.
Yeah.
Wuhan is a tier 2 city. I don't actually know what that means, so maybe someone can elaborate.
I actually know. I know something that other people... Oh my god, this is amazing. So I think a tier 2 city it's not as developed as... I think Shanghai and Beijing are classed as tier 1. So most of the building has been done. Now they're just adding extra things like residential properties and all that kind of stuff in the States and all that kind of stuff. But I think Wuhan's infrastructure is still being built, and I think that's why it's categorized as a tier 2 city.
Right.
Because there's some things that still aren't implemented everywhere. So things like internet lines and public transport and the metro is a prime example, which we will talk about later on. So I think that's why it's regarded as a tier 2, one of the main reasons why it's regarded as a tier 2 city instead of a tier 1.
Yeah, I went to IKEA at the weekend with our friend Matilda, who lives kind of on the
podcast.
Yeah, friend of the podcast. She lives on the outskirts of Wuhan, and it wasn't until I was on the metro going on the overground line. There's one overground line that goes out into the suburbs. It wasn't until I was on that going out to meet her that I realised how much Wuhan still has to develop. They have a lot of high-rise apartment buildings, but there's not a lot of kind of infrastructure around that, and it was really interesting. I think we do live in a bubble in here, in this area.
So on that, I think it's fair to say that Wuhan doesn't have as much of a global name as some of the other Chinese cities here, and that must have something to do with the fact that it is recognised as a Chinese tier 2 city. But despite that, it does seem, and I think you will probably agree, that there are quite a lot of foreigners here, and one of the reasons for that I found in my research of Wuhan's history is because it has 35 higher education institutions that attract foreigners to the city. So it's well known around the world to be an educational hub as well. So that's why foreigners come here. Besides from that, there are so many others. And actually I found this really interesting stat. So there are 80 colleges and universities in Wuhan, 590 primary schools, and 369 high schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
Plenty
So
of
if you
work
want a
for
job as a foreign teacher, come to Wuhan.
I've just got a couple more things that I think are worthy of letting people know about.
Yeah.
There is a lot of French investment in China right now,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in Wuhan. There are 50 French companies investing in Wuhan, and that is 1/3 of all French investment in China. And that's the highest of any other of any city in China. And finally, there was one thing I wanted to say. As everyone knows, we're from Glasgow, or we went to Glasgow University, and I think Wuhan and Glasgow have some like really interesting similarities. Wuhan and Glasgow both have a history of being involved in heavy industry, and when heavy industry was declining, they both sort of like repurposed their cities to be more focused towards tourism. And I just think it's like interesting that we're here now when Wuhan is trying to do that.
Yeah.
Having come from a city that has been
Maybe that's why
successful
we were
in doing
drawn here, mate.
that.
Yeah, maybe it was fate.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about Wuhan that I found on the internet.
Amazing. The internet's pretty decent. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I didn't even... I don't know much about anything anyway, but yeah, there was a lot I didn't know about that. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, this podcast is going to degrade very quickly into, I like this place in Wuhan because... But I think there are a lot of cool places here. The short list we are going to give is definitely not going to give Wuhan the justice it deserves, because I'm positive there's 101 places that we haven't seen ourselves. Like, you've been here, you and Ruth have been here for a year, and me and Dean have been here for 2 months. I feel we've barely scratched the surface of what Wuhan has to offer.
Yeah.
I think maybe just telling our experiences about some of the cool places we have been would be quite a good way to, explain what there is to do in Wuhan. Yeah.
Let's crack on then.
Yeah, let's get on with it. Yeah. So, Dean, do you want to tell us about some of the cool places? Hit us with a cool place.
Okay. Wuhan Provincial Library. Now, I really enjoyed it. I went because there was an art exhibition, and it does an art exhibition for famous Chinese artists every Sunday. There's always something going on. And I was astounded by the size of the library. It's 100,000 square meters. It has over 6,300 people. It can accommodate over 6,300 people all at the same time, just in its meeting rooms. Never mind everywhere else.
But since it's China, mate, triple that figure, and we're still pushing for more people to get
And it's over 5,500,000 volumes of books of various volumes of some sorts. But I went there for an art exhibition for Sheningborn, which is where we were originally. Sheningborn artist Dong Jining, or Jining, I can't pronounce it. But it was really, really good. I enjoyed it. Speaking about your history facts, feeds into that. It was first opened in 1904 by Zhang Zedong, who was the viceroy of this region for the Qing dynasty, and a prominent modernizer and anti-monarchist. Right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
And he died 2 years before the Wuchang uprising, but was known to be sympathetic to it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I didn't know that.
And I found that was my interesting place that I liked.
Yeah. What about you, Tony? Have you been anywhere interesting?
So one of the great things about Wuhan is there are a lot of temples that are either being restored or fully intact from previous years gone by here in the city. And there are 4 main ones. The first one, the biggest one, is Yellow Crane Tower. And it's like the symbol of the city. It's in all of the like adverts and stuff like that. But sadly, we have not been there yet. So...
Because it's been covered in scaffolding for the past year.
Exactly. So we want to go and see it in its full glory.
I just wanted to get the defence in.
Yeah.
So we haven't been there yet, but I have actually been to the 3 other main temples in Wuhan. There are 2 Buddhist temples and 1 Taoist temple. The Buddhist temples are called Baotong Temple and Guiyuan Temple, and the Taoist temple is called Changchun Temple. So Baotong Temple is probably the most scenic and beautiful temple that I've been to maybe in China, actually. It's really, really beautiful. It's the main temple area is, extremely like vivid and colorful. And there's always some kind of like service going on. So like, even though like I have no connection to Buddhism as a religion or even as like an interest, it's really cool to see not only the people who work and live in the temple, carrying out their daily duties, but also seeing the people of Wuhan's reaction to what it's like when that's going on. Also in Baotong Temple, there's a really cool pagoda, and you can climb the pagoda, and it gives you a really nice view over the city. Guiyuan Temple is also a Buddhist temple, so in a way it's very similar to Baotong Temple, but there are two very cool differences. One, there is a massive statue of some Buddha.
Nice, nailed the detail.
I have no idea what it's called or anything, but it's bloody huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
Also in Wuhan Temple is a really cool hall, and it's filled with loads of statues of arhats, which are like little Buddhist characters.
No, they're Buddhist saints.
Okay, so arhats are little Buddhist saints, and they
By
are...
the way, guys, we have totally nailed all the details for any religion and any facts and figures that we needed to for this episode. We were totally prepared for it.
Hey, my stats were dead on.
Yeah, they were good, mate.
But anyway...
Back to your little guys with hats. What were you saying?
Arhats, mate. Arhats. So the arhats, they're depicted in this hall as, little fat, like, Buddhist monks. You know the way we think of Buddha the way we see Buddha when we think of him, like the classic, like, Western notion of Buddha, like this little jolly fat dude.
That's the laughing monk, it's not the Buddha.
Right, okay, right, fine.
We are just like...
I'm absolutely murdering Buddhism here.
We're gonna get fucking deported.
We're taking a nail gun through the head of Buddhism.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is there's this cool hall, and you go into the hall and you count the statues to your age.
Right.
And when you have counted to your age, you note down which statue you're at. You go round to the little window at the side of the temple, and if you make a donation, they will give you a gold card with your fortune on it. And I just thought it was like a really cool thing.
It's probably worth noting that you count from wherever you choose.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, because otherwise everyone would end up being roughly the same saint. You would never get to all of them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It's
Some of them
like
would be neglected at the back.
Exactly. Like
The poor guys at the back, no one's picking them.
Yeah.
You just have to like let yourself, your like spirit take you to like whatever statue is supposed to be like your personality or whatever. And finally, Changchun Temple is slightly different because it's a Taoist temple. Taoism is, again, I'm not extremely knowledgeable about it, but
You're gonna give a crack at it anyway, though, aren't you?
people who have a very limited knowledge of Taoism know that it is famous for yin and yang. So you know the yin and yang with the black and white like circle with the symbols in it.
Yeah.
That's Taoism. And it, again, is extremely beautiful and is actually located right off like one of the busiest roads or what seems like one of the busiest roads in Wuhan, and every fucking road in Wuhan is busy, so you can imagine what the busiest one is like. And once you're in there, it's as if like you're in the middle of the countryside and there's nothing happening. It's so peaceful.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I noticed about, I think maybe Guiyuan is maybe the only one that's kind of off the beaten track.
Yeah.
But Baotong and the other one, they're very much in the city, like the heart of the city. So like Baotong Temple is a metro stop as well, so built up that there's a lot of schools and all that kind of stuff there. So it is very busy all the time. But as soon as you get over the gate, it's like you can't hear anything.
Right.
It's amazing.
If you were blindfolded and dropped in there, you wouldn't know that you were in the middle of the city. It's very, very skillfully enclosed and very beautiful.
Yeah, it's a weird contrast that I've never really had, like a weird experience I've never really had anywhere else in the world. The contrast of going to this really beautiful and peaceful temple and then walking out and nearly being run over and being able to go to Burger King. It's really bizarre. You don't really get the juxtaposition of culture anywhere like you do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like after reaching like spiritual enlightenment at McDonald's, you can go across to Baotong Temple and see what that's all about.
It's funny because people who don't know you won't know that you're joking. Not joking. I'm being deadly serious.
I love Macca's. Oh my god.
So, Lewis, what's your favourite thing about Wuhan?
I think one of my favourite things in Wuhan is Tan Hualin, and it's kind of like a small... I'm going to use hipster. Yeah, it's like a small hipster area. I've actually been twice in the past wee while. I went after a wedding that I went to. But it's right beside one of the medical universities as well as an art university. So it kind of reminds me of the West End of Glasgow, if anyone's been there. And it's a lot of small independent shops and small coffee shops. And there's lots of like twisting and winding streets that go, you go down this back street thinking it's going to lead to nowhere, and it opens up to this beautiful place with heaps of these little shops that sell little like craft things. And since it's beside the art university, there is a lot of students also selling the things that they've made. And there's students practicing drawing. So last time I was there, they were all sitting on there was a little grassy lawn area, and they're all sitting there and they had their easels and all that kind of stuff out, and they were drawing the street, and it was really beautiful. It's all pedestrianised as well, so you don't need to worry about cars running you over. You still need to worry about scooters though, because they are maniacs. They'll go anywhere they can.
They're allowed in pavement, playgrounds, the matter.
They do what they want. They're doing wheelies down the street. Man. It's fine though, because I think that if a scooter hit you in China, it would just like disintegrate into a million pieces, and you would just walk off unscathed. Anyway, this place is really cool. It has lots of tea shops as well, and you can get some really nice ice cream there. And there's like guitar shops and all that kind of stuff. It's very different from what I imagine China is. It's Western, I would say, very Western.
Yeah.
Very hipster, very alternative. And actually, it also has a church there, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So it's it's kind of like a Western hub in the middle of Wuhan.
It's also, I think, I really like it as well. And I think one of the reasons I really like it is because everywhere else in Wuhan is very built up, like high. So there are a lot of skyscrapers. At Tanhuolin, all the buildings are either traditional Chinese architecture or like colonial architecture, and so all the buildings are very small and low down, and just like aesthetically very beautiful. I think another cool thing about Tanhuolin is that I think it's really indicative of the part of China's youth that is more engaged with Western culture and with artistic culture and stuff like that. There's a really cool inside area of Tanhuolin at the end of the street where they sell, little like boutique postcards and coffee and things like that. And I remember the last time we were there, they had seats out and they were showing independent Western movies.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I don't think that that's a thing that a lot of Chinese people, due to the way China is in the modern world, are very engaged with.
Right.
So Tanhuolin reminds me more of Tianzifang in Shanghai or Nanluo Guxiang, the Hutong in Beijing.
Yeah, it seems like a repurposed traditional setting of China that they've basically injected heaps of Western stuff into, but it's not done in like an ill fashion. It's done well.
Like not that commercial side of Westernization, like McDonald's and Burger King and Starbucks and all that, but like the sort of the good parts of Western culture.
So like individuality and expression and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Ruth, what about you? What do you like about Wuhan?
I like everything about Wuhan, Liz. Wuhan is my home. I think Wuhan probably gets a bad rap because I think so many people where we come from in the West or at home in Scotland or in the UK haven't heard of it. And I think maybe sometimes you do it a bit of a disservice because we want out the metro. But I think it's great. There's so much to see and do, like all the things we've talked about. And there's a really great museum that has so many interesting pots.
Was it like Chinese ceramic ware?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like honestly, Gina, after like 10 pots, I was done.
You can only take a couple of pots, can't you? And then that's it. You're like, right, where's the mummies? Get the mummies out. I want to see something.
We're not really fitting in those pots. Like the museum is cool.
It's a beautiful building.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. It's a beautiful building.
I think the thing about Wuhan that I probably like most, it makes me feel most at home, which I didn't really expect when I came to China, is the possibility to go shopping and like to do all the things that we would do at home while being here. And I think maybe it sounds a bit shallow and superficial, and I really hope it doesn't come across that way. But sometimes when you just had a really hard week at school, or like you're tired or you're just homesick, it's just really nice to be able to go and do things with friends that you would probably be able to do at home. And there's a place called Han Street, and it's where dreams come true. I feel like I'm painting it like a Disney film. No, but it just has all of the places that we got home, and you can go get coffee and you can relax, and it's not busy, it's not stressful. It's probably the place that I think we all probably go when we're feeling tired and homesick and fed up of rice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've got M&S there. Marks and Sparks.
Yeah. And
a
Zara.
British institution.
Yeah.
I mean, as Ruth said, it's hard to be so involved in China, especially when you're a Westerner. Sometimes it does just get on top of you. And there is a few places in Wuhan which I find that you can get away. Tanhuolin, I think, is one of them. There's another place called Chikoni, which I think we'll talk about, which is another one. But Han Street, definitely. If you need to just like let off some steam and just be in an environment that's normal to you, Han Street is perfect for that because you can get away. People don't stare at you as much because there's a lot of foreigners there and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of takes the stress of being in China off of you.
And those little things make a big difference.
I think that's been one of the good things about coming back for a second year. I guess last year we felt a lot of pressure to go out and see everything and kind of be a tourist in our hometown and make the most of it constantly. And I mean, that was great because I guess Tony, you and I have seen most of the tourist things in Wuhan, the touristy things, the attractions in Wuhan. And what's so great about this year is we can relax a little bit more and treat Wuhan as more of a home rather than more of this sort of temporary base from which to kind of travel and experience and constantly be having this like amazing journey. Sometimes it's just nice to treat it like home and relax. And I guess that's why it's so great to have places like Han Street or like Tanhua Inn to be able to kind of do all the things you would do when you were at home.
Yeah.
And have shops and have brands and have places that are familiar and you actually recognise.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when you go out, so for example, if we went to somewhere in Hanko, which is across the river, we would have to plan, right, how we're going to get there, what bus do we need to take, what kind of vocabulary we might need, to get there.
Yep.
Sometimes it's nice to not have to think about any of that.
Yep.
You can just go onto the metro, get to Han Street, do whatever, get to, your bubble in Wuhan, and then just chillax. I think that's very important here. Obviously, if we go into detail about all of the great places that we've been to or we want to go to in Wuhan, we'd be here all night. But we'll just quickly go around and just say a few words about some of the other great places that we have in Wuhan. So there's one place that I really enjoyed in Wuhan. It's at the end of one of the metro lines, and it's called Guanggu, and it's like any other built up place in Wuhan, and it's got lots of shopping centres and lots of brands like H&M, and it's got Carrefour and all that kind of stuff. But it has 4 very cool things. It has Spanish Street, Italian Street, and Germany Street, and these are just shopping streets. They've got like restaurants and random shops and stuff like that, and a cinema on it.
Yeah.
But they're just built in, the Spanish, German, and Italian like local architecture, and it's just really bizarre because you've just been transported to Europe, but you're still in China, and they're selling like meat sticks on the side of the road and stuff like that. It's just really weird. And the 4th thing that's very strange about all of this, so you walk through Spanish Street, and then you walk through Italian Street, and then you walk through Germany Street. They're all linked together, and at the end there's just this massive electronic dinosaur. It's like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's just there for some reason. And then behind it, if like your mind isn't already blown enough by like being transported to Europe and then seeing a dinosaur, there is like a fuck off huge crater at the end of the street. It's honestly the biggest hole I've ever seen in my life. I remember when you guys took me there, and I was like, yeah, this is alright, and you're like, wait for the end. And there was this fucking huge hole. I just didn't understand, like, why didn't you fill this in, guys? Put something here, come on.
And it's been here the whole time we've been in China.
Yeah, it's been here for like 2 years or something.
But I saw on WeChat, somebody posted a WeChat moment. WeChat is like WhatsApp, but it has like a share function for anyone listening outside of China. And apparently there are now more dinosaurs at Objects Valley. So like there's not just one anymore.
It's a very
and
Jurassic
last
World.
time we were there, they blocked off the pit, so you can't see it anymore.
You can't even see the pit. That's
the
the point of going to the 3 streets. You get to see the pit at the end.
Actually, when Ruth and I's when our friends Kelly and Alison came to visit, we took them to Guanggu. We took them to see the pit, but we also took them, to go around the shops.
Yeah,
and stuff.
you dressed it up.
But in the Italian street, there is a replica cathedral. It is so bizarre. And when Kelly saw it, she was just like, "What is going on? What is this? I must have a picture with it. Is there an actual is it built up like a cathedral inside?" Yes, it is. If you go in, there are pews and an altar and like Michelangelo-esque art on the walls. So bizarre.
Does it actually function as a church?
No, man, I'll tell you what it functions as. They've got a huge fuck off TV in the cathedral. Everybody goes in and just watches TV
it's
in
a
there.
cathedral to television.
Yeah. And then behind it, like in the same almost building, there's just a coffee shop. It's really odd. It doesn't make any sense.
Insanity.
Also, on the German style street, there's just like really busty women, like
with beer.
mannequins of women with big boobs and big like jugs of beer. It's so odd. It's like borderline offensive.
Yeah, and what it is just Wuhanese people's idea of what Germans, Italians, and Spanish people are
How
like.
disappointed would you be though if you went to Germany and then you were like, what dinosaurs don't exist?
Where are all the beautiful busty women who are pouring beer down my throat? There are none.
Okay, so what other places are there in Wuhan that we can go to, or that we want to go to?
Happy Valley!
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Wuhan has a theme park and it's really fun. Tony and I queued for 2 hours to get on a roller coaster when my friends came to visit. And it was worth every minute that we waited. It's really fun.
I don't think it was a minute long.
No, it wasn't. But it's interesting that Wuhan has its own theme park. I didn't really expect to go to a theme park in China. Sorry, Mum. I don't think she'll be too pleased that I was on a roller coaster in China.
Health and safety is top notch though, because they use like high quality thread for the safety stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a guy there, so he's got all the security codes, and it gets maintained like 3 times like every 10 years, so it's perfectly safe.
And we definitely didn't nearly fall out of that ride, but it was fun.
Yeah. I was like, so it was this ride that just turned you upside down, right?
But then it stopped.
And it stopped upside down, and me and Aaron were right at the front of it, and Ruth and Tony were at the back. And I just heard these screams like, Tony, get me off of this! And he was like, I don't know what to do.
It was horrible. I'm so much smaller than the rest of you, and I was like sliding out of the harness. So God knows what all those like Chinese women who are half the size of me were doing.
Yeah.
So, Happy Valley, happy endings. One place on a totally unrelated note that I will mention is the Botanic Gardens, Metro Museum, which is like their transport museum.
Oh, yeah.
I've not been to that, but I would like to go to both of those places. There's the Wuhan Provincial Museum, which covers like not just ceramic pots, but like relics and things related to religious iconography.
Oh, yeah.
I think they just conglomerate it all together because it's from a couple of different places.
I think they have that like roaming like exposition, don't they? And they change it about every once in a while. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was really good. Yeah, I feel like I didn't do the museum justice. It was really, really great.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. There's a lot of good stuff in there. You should go, Dean.
Finally, I would just like to mention East Lake, or Donghu in Chinese. East Lake is just a massive lake in the middle of Wuhan, and it has all these very picturesque parks dotted around it. And it's just a really nice place to go in the summer and chill out. We went to East Lake during the Chinese Festival of Light, and it wasn't so good then because every one of Wuhan's 10 million people were there, I think, on that night, and you could hardly move.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was going to die. But apart from that, it's really, really lovely.
No, we got the bus home from the Festival of Light, and it was so busy that you were like packed on like sardines, and like every time the bus stopped, you didn't need to hold on to anything because the sheer volume of people would just hold you up.
Yeah, travelling on the buses at the best of times is always an adventure. I mean, there was that one time a couple of days ago, it was in the morning, so how many people are up at, like, say, on a Saturday? My mistake. And it was so busy, and he just kept stopping and letting more people on, and people were hanging off, and he was trying to shut the door onto old women's faces, and it was just absolute anarchy. So I can't imagine what it would be like during a festival.
Obviously, nobody offered the old women their seat.
Oh no, nobody at all.
And I think that's a pretty good way to get us on to the fact that one of the things that probably causes us the most ire in Wuhan is the public transport system, the buses and the metro.
So you've got like all these beautiful places that you can go to in Wuhan, but unfortunately you have to, I think wrestle is a good adjective to explain it. You have to wrestle your way through the public transport system here. But first of all, like before we talk about like how infuriating it can be, what is the transport system like? Is it good here or is it bad or?
I think in comparison to where I come from, the public transport system here is actually, it's built very well and it's run pretty well. The problem is the people who use it don't use it the way it's supposed to. In Wuhan's a really big city, and so obviously until the metro is fully constructed, it's not going to be at its most useful.
So
but at the moment,
4 lines now, right?
I think there are only 3 lanes actually at the moment, and one of them goes to the middle of nowhere, which is where Ruth went to IKEA, and the other 2 sort of span. They cross the 3 parts of Wuhan in probably like the most direct way. So there are parts of Wuhan that you would want to go to that you can't get to using the metro. For example, where we live right now, there is no current metro station or metro line, but it is under construction.
Mm-hmm. There is only one line that actually crosses the river at the moment. So Hankou, so we're on the Wuchang side of the river, and if you want to get to Hankou, you kind of get the bus, or you can get the one metro line, which the 10 million people in Wuhan will also need to take.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're really trying to push like to sort out the metro by the end of next year. I think it is they want to add 2 lines every year or something like that.
The speed of their construction is incredible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like they've been doing it down beside our house. You know, what's it like? It's absolutely mental, right?
Yeah,
it's so unsafe.
And because when they're doing it, in the evenings and at middle of the night, they'll clear away and transport all the dirt that they've unearthed from these ungodly holes that will be where the metro is. They just stick it on gas-guzzling, diesel-ridden, grimy trucks and just drive it out. So they dig up the roads, you wake up in the morning, it's like the London smog of the 19th century, you can't breathe, your eyes are burning and you didn't get sleep because it's been noise all night with people building and moving earth. Yeah. It'll be great when it's finished.
Especially where we live right beside the school, there is literally a metro stop that's going to be like 100 metres away from us. And it is like all systems go because they really do need to hit this deadline and start relieving some of this transport here in China.
Especially because the lines that are open are always so busy, especially on, like, I got the metro on Sunday and it was so busy and there were so many people pushing to get on. I had to get off and take a taxi to come home because it was just unbelievable. You couldn't move. It was horrible.
So why do we think that is? Why is it such a pain in the ass to get the metro here?
Because there's not enough lines, there's too much demand and not enough supply.
I honestly do not think Chinese people know how to pack a subway.
They can't queue. They don't think of others.
Well, I think we talked about this when we spoke about when we did the
stereotypes.
Yes, we talked about common Western stereotypes of Chinese people, and I think at one point I was talking about how, you know, the culture is such here that people need to look out for themselves and themselves alone, otherwise they're going to get left behind, and that is very much the case on the Wuhan metro because there is like not enough lines and not enough space and not enough trains coming every minute or whatever. You know, when people are getting on the metro, they don't care about anyone else. They don't care if there's an old woman who needs a seat. They don't care if there's a woman with a baby in her arms who needs to get on the carriage first, or else she's gonna drop her baby on its head. Like, they're gonna get on, and that's it. That's all they care about.
And then normally, like, it's like a line, but I think I said this in the old podcast, it's like a line. As soon as they get over that threshold, they just like stop. So they get 1 foot on that train and they stop. Even if it's a guy who's travelling from Beijing all the way down to Shenzhen and he had to get the Wuhan metro with all 50 of his bags. He is going to get all 50 of his bags and just stop right at the front of the door. He won't move in. He won't let other people go in first or anything like that. He'll just get on and that's him. And he'll block the way for everybody else. Yeah,
man, I saw a woman take her entire garden onto the Wuhan metro at one point, and it was so bizarre.
Remember that there was that one time I went on the metro, I was coming back on the metro. I had my earphones in, and it was quite busy. And so normally in that case, people don't talk to each other, they just ignore each other, and they're staring at each other's heads, or they're contorted into weird positions to read a book or something, or look at an iPod. This one woman just sort of tugged at my ear, and she said, gave me eye contact, like icy, glassy eyes. What are you doing here? Don't you know the war is coming? And I was like, what? What war? And she was like...
You're just slowly getting up from your seat and you're like, ah!
And I was standing up and I was like, what war? And at first I thought, what are you doing here? Do I look like I'm too old to do this job? And I was freaking out at the age. Because that's the first thing my mind goes to. And she was like, you need to go back to America. And I was like, oh no, I'm from England. And I subsequently found out it would have probably been because the American destroyer around the Chinese island.
Right.
But it just freaked me out. The way she was convinced the war is coming. What are you doing here?
Yeah, that's really eerie.
So that, on top of how busy the metro is now, stressed out I'm trying to use it. So how many people are shoving and pushing.
So now you're trying to wiggle your way through the massive crowd to like find another place to stand.
Yeah, away from the
insane
nutcase.
Woman.
Yeah.
And she was like an old haggard woman with ginger dyed. He dyed her hair ginger and then like cut it like with garden shears because it wasn't even in any way, shape or form. I mean, she was just a ghastly old woman, to be honest.
It infuriates me, like getting on the bus and getting on the metro. But one of the things I love doing is just moving people, because like I'm quite big compared to like the average Chinese person, and like obviously when you come to a place like China, I'm not trying to like blow like smoke up my own ass, but like you have to be quite confident in going out because people are going to look at you, people are going to talk about you, people are going to point at you, people are going to take photos of you. So you have to be quite confident in yourself when you go out to be like, look, this isn't going to bother me. Let's just get on and do whatever I was going to do. So I feel like completely at home just manhandling Asian people and just like moving them to more sensible places. For example, I had one when I was going in Zhongnan Road. It's one of the big roads in China, in Wuhan. This girl was trying to get a balloon on the Wuhan metro. So there's so little rules on the Wuhan metro. You're allowed to like elbow someone in the face. You're allowed to beat someone down with your handbag or like suitcase. You're allowed to like shove in front of each other and like knock a woman in a wheelchair over. But the one rule is you're not allowed to bring a balloon on to the metro for some bizarre reason. I don't know why.
It's like Fight Club with no logic.
So she tries to get this balloon on, and when you get on the metro, you have to get everything scanned through. It's like an airport. You have to scan your stuff through this X-ray machine, but there is a gate that's only big enough for one person. And of course, this girl was talking to the security guard, but in that place, she was standing where everybody had to go through after the scanner. But like, since everybody else was just like edging past her, sidestepping around her, I was like, this is insanity. So I just walked up to her, grabbed her shoulders, and like removed her from the area and like put her in the corner so she could talk to the security guard there. And she didn't get upset. She didn't say, "What are you doing?" She didn't say, "Excuse me." She looked at me. She looked at the new position that she was now in, and she just accepted it. I've been moved to here now, so I will now stand here. She didn't care. It didn't occur to her that she should maybe move so that other people could get through. And that is something that I do on the metro a lot of the time, because it's easier to do that than to like try and talk to people to be like, "Hey, excuse me, could you please remove yourself from this area so that I can get through?" It's easier just to move people, like I'm playing Tetris or something like that.
People are remarkably calm on the metro. One woman sat on me once. There was a tiny gap between me and the man next to me, and she sat on me, and I was furious. I was so mad. She sat on my knee, and she was big. I was so angry, and everyone else couldn't believe that I was furious, and everyone was really calm. Do you remember?
It was it was the most normal thing in the world.
It was normal.
A woman would just sit on someone else.
Yeah, she just sat on my leg so that I would move and she could sit down. She wasn't old. I would have given her my seat if she was older and firm, but she was just another person.
She was just fat, greedy, and lazy.
Well, yeah, and rude.
Essentially, and rude.
It's the same on the bus. When you're waiting for the bus, there's no orderly queue or anything. So everyone's just spread out, and you don't know who's getting on what bus. But then let's say your bus comes, it's just everyone converges as if the door's a magnet for people. And then everyone's just pushing each other to get on. No, I must be on the bus first.
It's like that bus is the only way out of an apocalypse now setting, and they need to be on it, and they're coming out of the jungle to get into it.
The last bus out of Saigon.
Yeah, it's totally like the fall of Saigon. Just trying to get on a bus.
They have none of that very, British reserved
queuing etiquette.
Yeah.
Queuing
etiquette.
No,
please, you go on to the bus first. Oh no, after you. Sorry.
I'm terribly sorry. I did not mean to budge in front of you.
When we were coming back, we went shopping on Monday. When we were coming back, our bus arrived, and I'm not kidding, 25 people ran towards it. We were taxi.
No. Also, we were standing at the same bus stop, and the bus, for some reason, just didn't stop where it usually does. And all these people, they ran to where it was about to be, and then it didn't stop, and they were all just running after it. And they were like, no.
It's like a Dawn of the Dead setting.
Yeah.
They're all it was no bus.
It was they were zombies trying to get on there. Crazy.
The thing that really frustrates me, though, that when you're getting on the bus, so there is all that shoving, it's so annoying. But VIP seats, not the VIP seat, I don't know what to call
them.
The
love
seats. So basically, you give it's seats right at the front of the bus, and it's for people who are pregnant, people who have got walking sticks and that, and elderly people or little kids.
Yeah.
And every single time I go on a bus, 9 times out of 10, it is the complete opposite demographic that is on that. It is men who are aged 20 to 30 that are sitting on these seats, and they're all face down looking at their phone. And you'll see, because I just go right up to the back of the bus because I'm not dealing with any of that. Right. And you'll see an old woman come on with 3 bags. No one's helping her. And then she'll go and waddle along, and she'll be like, "Oh, there's no seats. I'll stand here." The guys will all look up from their phone and be like, "Oh, it's an old woman," and then look back down at their phone. And they're like, "I'm not going to give her my seat. There's no etiquette for that." I've seen maybe once or twice a young guy give his seat. And obviously, I'm not trying to be harsh or anything. You have to fight for everything in China.
Yeah.
Not fight, but you have to be determined to get what you want. So I understand their rationale, but it's just a shame to see an old woman hobble onto the bus. She's got one leg. She's got no eyes. She's like a war victim.
One shattered lung.
Yeah. She's got a respirator on her back and everything like that. And yeah. It's just frustrating.
I tried to give my seat to a woman on the metro on Saturday and she pushed me back down. Do you remember, Tony?
Yep.
She was like, no.
To some degree, I do find this sometimes. Is it because we're Wygoran? They feel, the old people feel that we ought to sit on those seats. Because I've tried giving my seat up for old people on the bus, and they just won't let me give them it. But they'll then take it from a Chinese person.
I don't think it's that it's because we're Wygoran. Wygoran means foreigner.
Foreign person.
I don't think it's that they look up to us or they think we're important so much as it's just that they're used to not having people give their seat up. So
Is that really?
I think so. I don't think it's got anything to do with like our status in China or anything.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Well, the amount of times you get elbowed and fucking punched in the face.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody gives a fuck.
The thing that I always find myself becoming on the Wuhan metro or just public transport here in general is just extremely angry, and it's usually with my headphones on at like the highest volume, so I can't hear what I'm saying or what anyone else is saying, and I'm probably saying some of the worst shit you could possibly imagine me saying.
I just go on. I know I'm going to be angry. I have my headphones on, and I'm just like, I'm calling people C's. I'm telling them to fuck off. I'm like, why are you doing that, you stupid C? Why are you standing there? And they look at me. I'm like, don't just look at me, move. And they're like, ooh. But yeah, I'm not a nice person.
When I got changed, the metro lecture meant to come back to Wuhan railway station, but I had to get on the pink line, then get on the blue line and the green line. There was a guy who got on the metro and he was pushing me, and I had all that stuff from IKEA. I bought a laundry bag, so I was carrying that home as well, and he kept pushing me from behind. I couldn't move because I had like all this stuff. And I turned around and he was like this far away from my face, and I was like, why the fuck are you pushing me? And he was like, huh? I was like, why the fuck are you pushing me? Don't fucking touch me. And he was like, take my dog in red, take my dog in red. I was like, fuck you. And everyone was looking. And then I turned around and some guy with the flash on took a photo of me on the metro, and I was like, you bastard. And then
that's just the cherry on the crap cake, isn't it?
I got on at Jianghan Road and by GU Chow, I was like, fuck this, and did a
That's like
taxi
3
on the way home.
stops, right? Okay, so I think we've given a pretty good overview of like what there is to do, what there is to see in Wuhan. We haven't really tackled the nightlife, but I think we're going to do, a Wuhan City Part 2. So we can talk about what you can do at night, where you can go, kind of the bars and the clubs, and there's also other cool things that you can do, and there's a lot of pool, and the shops are open until late, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But we also got another listener question from M. Snodgrass. And he was wanting to know what the police are like in China. So have we had any good or bad situations with the police here?
Well, we have actually. Well, they're just nearby, where we were going out to eat barbecues and things in the evenings with the outside restaurants, and the police descended. And there are like 3 different types of police force.
Yeah, I think...
You have the traffic police, whose job is mainly to bum cigarettes and stand about. You have the scary police, who have like the guns that you don't mess with.
Yeah,
the gendarmerie or something.
They've all
like
legitimately got like SMGs and like assault rifles.
Kind of
it's
like
crazy.
a French gendarmerie or something. The armed police, and you've got another police that are regular police, but they don't really do anything either.
I think they're kind of like the community police back home.
Yeah.
Like
They're the ones who look like they couldn't catch a cold, right?
Yeah. And the traffic police are the ones that have caught it. So you've got all 3 of these different types of police descending on this eatery area, and it was crazy. What was it like?
There was like 50 of them. Legitimately 50 of them.
But all they were doing was like smashing stuff. Like just throwing stuff on the ground.
The thing is, we don't know because 1, we don't speak good enough Chinese, and 2, we just have no understanding of how these things work. But in China generally, and in Wuhan, there are certain times when you can have like outdoor seating and outdoor eating areas, and I guess at some point during the sort of summer into autumn changing of the seasons, the local government just decides no more. And people had ignored that ruling, and the police had just decided, we're going to smash this place to shit.
Yeah. So they went into one of the restaurants, and they were literally just dragging fridges out, throwing them into a back of a van, and just smashing all this stuff inside of it. Just because I'm guessing this changeover happened. I think it was maybe because we had quite a warm transition from summer to autumn.
So it didn't feel like there needed to be that change yet, but in China, they don't really think, oh, well, it's still pretty hot, so we should probably keep this going. It's sort of like, oh, it's October now, so this needs to stop.
Yeah.
To some extent, I do wonder just how constant the enforcement of city ordinances are here in China. I do sometimes wonder whether they go through phases of a clampdown. That we will enforce these city ordinances about planning permission to have seats outside or whatever that may be. And the 9 months of the year, they just don't give a flying pig. They just don't care. So they just sort of tap on, tap off, and the police just sort of descend and then disappear. And you won't see them.
It's just like everything in China. It's an extreme of everything. There is no grey area. There's no in between. It's either white or it's black.
In China, you're not allowed to sell fake stuff on the streets, but people do it and they don't get caught. But then I guess every now and then you have what happened when we're sitting in the restaurant and the police will sort of like make a show of it.
I guess we've just been really fortunate in the fact that we have very few dealings with the police. The only time I've been to the police station is to register. When we signed the contract with our landlord, we had to go and register and say that we were, foreign people living in his apartment. That's the only time I've ever had any contact with the police, and they were remarkably inefficient.
Who would have thought it?
And I think generally, in terms of like the police presence that you see on the streets, like the Bobby and the Beat. I mean, you do see them about, but I never feel like we're living in a police state or like a surveillance state. Like they're there, but I personally, from my experience, I don't feel like they're everywhere, like crawling with it. In Beijing at Tiananmen Square, it felt different.
It's quite We've only had, I think, maybe one encounter with like policemen. And it was when me, yourself, Tony, and Ruth, we were all at Guanggu. We were at Optics Valley. Guanggu is so busy. It's where the Germany, Italian, and the Spanish street are. And it's always so busy, especially on a Sunday. So we decided to go on the Sunday, have a look around the streets and all that kind of stuff. And normally to get across the road, so it's like a massive roundabout, and there's so much traffic there. Normally to get across the road, there's an underpass and there's an overpass. But they were like restoring the overpass. They were doing something to it. So it was only the underpass. And this underpass is like 50 meters long. Yeah. And it should take all of like 30 seconds to get through. But when we went on it that day, since it was a Sunday and since the overpass wasn't open, there was thousands of people crammed in here. And it was shoulder to shoulder down this like tunnel and back out. And it took maybe like 25 minutes to get through it. When we were coming back, I was just like, I'm not going back down there. So we can just go along the road, walk along the road, and then jump over. They had like barricade fences. I was like, let's just go around the road and then jump over the fence. And there was heaps of other people doing that as well, which was fine. And there was a policeman standing there watching it all happen, quite happy with himself. He's like, yeah. And then we come up like we're with like a crowd of people, and we come out and he like sees us and he like rushes to us and he's like, no, don't go over there. But he was only like, he was saying it in Chinese, so I only got a little bit of it. And I was asking him, "Wei Shima," which is like, why? Why are we not allowed to do it? And I was pointing at all these other people as he was letting them past. And I was raging because I was like, "Oh, this is so racist." I get put down here in China and all that kind of stuff. I was just being a drama queen. Yeah. But after like a minute of arguing with the guy, I just walked away anyway, and like followed the crowd and went onto the road. And he didn't do anything to stop us. I mean, in all fairness, I feel really bad looking back because he must have saw us and been like, "Oh, these are guests in my country. They might not know what they're doing. Yeah. So I'm trying to keep them safe." Yeah. So in all fairness, it was probably I did an absolute dick move shouting at him.
I don't know. I think you're being very generous about the traffic police.
Yeah.
I don't think they really do much generally, unless it's a crash. They just really, and I don't think they think much. I think enforcement of laws here just generally is haphazard and tap on, tap off, tap on, tap off.
Well, I don't know.
Extreme.
Yeah. I feel really bad. Like at the time, I was raging because I was like, I don't want to go down that stupid tunnel and take 25 minutes. I just want to jump over this fence and take 2.
There is one thing that this city and this country is crawling with, and I don't know whether it's to a deliberate policy to create jobs or not, but security guards are endemic. And they're almost always, 99% of the time, old, greying, retired men. And it's almost like this is why they build gated communities everywhere. It's so that they can have a job for old men to retire to. And they're thoroughly useless. In fact, they make my life much harder than it needs to be.
The one in our community has one arm.
Nice.
So he's not doing any kind of crime prevention.
And the gate doesn't work,
Yeah.
so like anyone can walk through it, and it's not like he's summoned to question every single person that walks
And
through that
usually
gate.
they're at the gate and they're like,
Yeah.
Snoozing, tabbing away,
Yeah.
or on their phone, eh?
Yeah, one of them did offer me a snack the other day. He had some peas and he offered me them.
Oh, that's
But-
Delicious.
Well, yeah. He
But-
wasn't doing any work.
no.
But no, like they are frustrating. Like we're in a new community,
Mhm.
Dean. We're just across the road from Ruth and Tony, and this guy is like a Nazi. He will like lock up the gate with a padlock, like a massive
Padlock
ass
and chain,
padlock
yeah.
and chain at 10 o'clock every night. I'm like, mate, I can't get into the right. So we've all got these key cards. So only people who live here can get inside. And now if you lock the gate, no one can get inside. What are you doing? Like, this is not fair. So instead of going through the gate, which is like really convenient, you have to take like a 5-minute detour. I say 5 minutes, it's like a minute. But in my mind, it's 5 minutes. A 5-minute detour
To walk
around.
past his gate where he's sitting there and sleeping. So it's not even enhancing security.
Yeah.
And besides, you can jump over this bloody fence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a deterrence.
Yeah. I mean, jump is maybe kind.
Yeah.
It's a climb.
It is a climb, I'll give him that.
Well, if I can
But-
Dean
climb
can high jump it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that'll do us for this week, guys. Next week, our topic will be about Wuhan nightlife. Before we go, I need to do 2 shout-outs. One to Simon Delorme. It's a French name.
You've murdered that.
Yeah, I've absolutely... Well, almost as much as you have with Buddhism today, so I think it's fine.
Fair play.
We haven't thanked him for making the picture, the Wuhan Weekly infograph or whatever picture. So thank you for that. And I
Thanks,
also...
Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
need to shout out Alden Harrell. I will link his YouTube on our Facebook and our Twitter, but he is also a teacher in China and he's starting to do some YouTube videos. He did one about Baotong Temple, which we talked about a bit today. So if you want to have a look at the places we're talking about, jump onto his YouTube and he should be uploading some things regularly. Okay, so you can find us at social media. Where can they get us, Tony?
You can find us on Facebook. Search for Wuhan Weekly Pod in the search bar.
You can find us on Twitter at Wuhan Weekly Pod.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Wuhan Weekly Pod, the same handle for the Twitter. And you can leave us a review on iTunes. Please give us 5 stars and a glowing review. That would be great.
And if you want to email us, it's wuhanweeklypod@gmail.com. Okay, that'll do it, guys. Bye!